CALPADS Error Resolution SPED Education Plan Amendment Date Mismatch. When troubleshooting any error in CALPADS, we always recommend consulting the CALPADS error list. This should be your first step. So the error list can be found in two places, either the CALPADS user manual, and it has a different format, or this format, which you will find in the Excel spreadsheet from the system documentation page. So from left to right, we have the rule number, right? SPED0438F1. That's used for locating the description of the error in the error list. And then you have the error name, education plan, amendment date, mismatch. It's important to note that you cannot really troubleshoot from the error name. You have to consult documentation so that you can have access to the error description, fields of validation, and the suggested resolution. Moving over to the error description, this is a simple reason why your error is triggering in a lot of cases. So if we just read a little bit of the error description, it says, if education plan amendment date is populated, then the SPED record being amended must exist in the system. And it lists the fields of validation. You see the fields of validation over here again. It's very important when you find the error that you don't think is triggering correctly and there's no known issue to go through the fields of validation one by one. Then further information is given in the suggested resolution. You can see at the top, it says understanding the error. The system is validating that meetings held after July 1st, 2019, the inception of case Mr. CALPADS, with an amendment date populated, there is a baseline SPED record matching, right? So basically that existing SPED record has to match all these fields in the amendment record, or the amended record has to match all the baseline fields for the original SPED record. And so set 1 and then set 2. Okay, so these are fields that you have to review. Suggested resolution, either the data being submitted is incorrect or the data in CALPADS is incorrect. Basically, there's a mismatch between records. So that's the suggested resolution. So when troubleshooting errors, sometimes you have to look at additional documentation outside of the error list, right? And so we're referencing here the CALPADS CFS Forms document found on the system documentation page. And we're looking at the key field here, education plan amendment date. And there's information about the amendment date. Basically, the definition is telling you it's the date when the service plan was amended. So we're going to come all the way over here. And you can see if education plan amendment date is not null, so if it's populated, then a SPED record must exist in the ODS, which is CALPADS, or the special education meeting type code. And then it's going to list all the fields that were validated or shown as fields of validation in the error list. So we're not going to rehash that. All right. And then it also tells you, it shows up, it's a required field, and these are the conditions of it being required. But it also shows up in input validations as well as data discrepancy. So we're reviewing the SPED 0438. Now let's talk about the cause for the SPED 0438. So in layman terms, a SPED record with an amendment date in CALPADS exists with no original SPED meeting reported. Remember the field of validation. This is key. The resolution is to submit the original SPED record. Now, how you go about doing this largely depends on your special education system. You may have to delete the record in CALPADS, the amended record, and the associated services, then submit the original, those services, and then the amendment record and those services. If you do not have that limitation in your SEDS, I would suggest go with the easiest method first, is try submitting the SPED record. So now let's demonstrate what we just prefaced going through the documentation. So this is live data, but we've hid the SSID. So you're going to go to the student profile by clicking the links of the SSID. It'll take you to the student detail screen. But you want to make sure that you copy the amendment IDs so that you can look at the correct record for comparison. So we'll just copy that. And then we're going to go over to the student detail. Okay, so here we have an easy one. We're on the student detail screen. You can see that we scroll down and open the container for special education programs. I did the hotkeys Control F, open up the search, then I Control V, pasted in that copied meeting amendment ID. It's highlighted the record in question, and we can do a quick scan on this one and see we have an amendment date. And so we're going to look for a meeting with that same date. And I can instantly see, because none of these dates are 8/23/2022, that this record does not have an original existing SPED record. There's no reason for an amendment if there is no previously plan review meeting on 8/23/2020. This is easy. We didn't have to open the record. We didn't have to go into detail. Here is a view of the CALPADS user manuals. SPED0438F1 error will tell you if education plan date is populated, the SPED record being amended must exist in the system and match on the following fields. You can see that one of those following fields is special education meeting date, right? And again, fields validated, you can see special education meeting date is a field validated, and then you have the corrections to be made, right? So let's look at another example of this error that is a little bit trickier to find. All right, so again, this is live student data, so we're going to be careful not to reveal any sensitive information. So I'm helping the LEA with a ticket, and I sent her the information about this error, right? And there was, a rebuttal, so to speak, because they believe this record, this amended record here, is the amendment to this record, okay? And so the key thing is when you're troubleshooting any error that looks legitimate or looks like it's triggering incorrectly and you don't see a known issue, go through every field of validation. And so not every field of validation is viewable here in the container. We're going to have to open the record to make sure we look at each field of validation and do a comparison. So first, we're going to open the original record, and then the second, and I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison of why this amended record is triggering the error, okay? So we've come to these records, and again, we're trying to protect student information, so we kind of didn't show you the whole scrolling. Hopefully you know the navigation. But we have the amended record over here on the left of the screen. You can see the amendment date. And then you can see that the amendment date is missing here. So this is the original record. And so having gone through the fields of validation, one of the reasons why you have to open these records and go into great detail is coming over here to the user manual. And we're looking at the fields of validation. 1445 parental involvement facilitation code is not viewable from the container. And that's a field of validation we have to check. So if we scroll down, parental involvement facilitation code, for the amendment record is no response given. For the original meeting, yes, there was parental involvement, right? Or the parental involvement facilitation code was yes. This single discrepancy has triggered the error, right? And so you have to decide which record has the legitimate parental involvement facilitation. Is it yes? Probably so, because that was the original meeting. But if not, you could either have to delete this original record and submit it again, correct it with no, or delete the amendment, which is probably more appropriate, and match it to the original record. So again, you have to go through the steps. You have to have a systematic approach and don't shortcut. This error has persisted for my LEA for a few days now. However, hopefully this can be easily resolved once it's pointed out to them. So we try to make this video to share the knowledge so that you have the tools to resolve these errors on your own. Good luck in troubleshooting and your reporting.